Alright guys, so heading to the junkyard to pick up some parts for the 153 swap. Yeah, I didn't think to bring my camera, my GoPros or anything, so I'm just going to use my phone. So yeah, I went yesterday, I got some parts. Ended up finding the car at the last 40 minutes. The place was open, so I had to rush and get the things that I needed. I got some of the things, but I didn't get the shift cables. I'm going to go back, try and get the shift cables. I'm also going to try and find some other Toyota vehicles that are manual. Everyone recommends a certain vehicle, a certain shifter cable arrangement and stuff like that, but I'm curious to see if you know, a shifter from a different car, you know, like a Scion or, you know, a Corolla or something like that might also work. So it's cheap enough that I'll pick a few up, or a shifter up, and then same with the shift cables. You know, everyone recommends a certain set of shift cables for the swap, but I don't know if anyone's ever tried any other ones from any other Toyota vehicles. Just because it's not a 153, it's still an E-Series transmission, and the shift pattern is the same, and the shift mechanism is basically the same, so I don't see why you couldn't use another set of cables. Pretty much just finding some stuff to experiment with today. So, like I said, I didn't bring my camera, so no fancy GoPro stuff, so I got an hour drive ahead of me, so see you when I get there. Alright, so here's the car I found. It's kind of a unicorn. Toyota Solara 99 V6 with the 153 transmission. I don't need the transmission because I already have one. Although if I had the help, I would probably take it because it's a good find. So I'm here with plenty of time, but apparently thunderstorms are rolling in. So all I'm after right now are the shift cables, the bracket back there that's attached to the transmission, and I think that'll be my goal for today. I was going to try and find some other stuff, but that's not looking too good. I take a moment to say this junkyard's awesome because it puts all the cars up on jack stands so you can get up under them. Makes it easy to get to these two bolts here to get the shift linkage out. Alright, so I made it back from the junkyard. I intended to film some stuff as soon as I got back, but obviously it's like 10 o'clock at night now. Yeah, after spending 3 hours out in the sun, I just kind of got home, took a shower, and passed out, so... but I'm awake now, so... I figure I'll go over some of the parts that I acquired at the junkyard. This will be, I guess, part 1 of the E153 swap series. Basically, these are just the parts I have on hand. Sorry for the noise, it's currently raining. I can't really see any of that because it's pitch black, but yeah, it's that time of year where it's really hot in the day and really wet in the afternoon, and it's just rain, and yada yada yada. So anyways, so I figured I'd just go over some of the parts I have on hand now and talk about some of the parts that I'm going to need, some of the parts I'm going to have to fabricate, what my game plan is, and so on and so forth. So yeah, after I broke third gear in the slightly built G-Series, literally the very first thing I did was I came home and I ordered this adapter plate. This is by Real Performance. Anyways, Jonathan Real, he makes these plates every once in a while. He just does a batch of them, and they usually go pretty quick. I think a lot of his sales are people overseas, or people just buy them and sit on them because I don't think too many people have actually done this swap stateside. So, anyways, yeah, this is the most important piece of the puzzle. It's the, well, probably not the most important piece, but one of the most important pieces. So yeah, this adapts the E-Series, the Toyota E-Series bolt pattern to the Mazda G-Series bolt pattern. So this works by bolting this onto the engine, and then you bolt the transmission onto this plate. So, next thing I did was I bought this. This is the legendary E153. This particular one's out of an MR2, and I know this because it was configured for mid-engine shift configuration. All the shift linkage came out of this end. So yeah, I acquired this from everyone's favorite plug, Manuel Fernandez. It's where everyone gets a lot of their BG and BP and all that fun stuff. This is one of the spares they had bought for Stanley, but I guess they didn't need it, so I bought it. All they pulled it apart, went through it, and made sure everything was good and clean inside, and slapped it back together. I'm probably going to pull it apart again, mainly just because I want to know how to take apart E-Series. Apparently they're a little more difficult to pull apart than the Mazda transmissions. I also bought a M-Factory helical LSD for it, so whenever that gets made, factory's doing a limited run. Someone put together a group buy for them, and so basically M-Factory has to engineer them and manufacture them before, or engineer, test, and manufacture them before they actually sell them. So I put down my deposit, and hopefully they should be done by June-ish, I think, or at least the first test sample should be ready by June. So hopefully shortly after that they'll go into production, and then we can get those LSDs out. So yeah, this is the transmission. The other stuff, this is the stuff I had to go hunting for, and this is going to be the stuff that, if you're doing this swap, this stuff may be harder to find than the transmission itself. Like I said, this transmission's from out of a 90, I'm going to say like a 91, 92 MR2, turbo, non-LSD. I think the non-turbo ones had a different transmission, a different E-Series, a lighter one. So yeah, you want the one out of the turbo. These transmissions also came in the, I think like 97 to 2000 Camry and Solera. Yeah, they did make a manual, which I didn't know for the longest time, but yeah, they made manual Camrys. It has to be the one with the V6. You can find them out of a few different vehicles. They're kind of hard to find nowadays, and if you find someone selling one, you're probably going to get ripped for it. So keep your eyes on the junkyards. I actually happen to know the location of one out of a Camry right now. If I had some friends that would be willing to go down to Orlando with me and help me pick it, that'd be great. But yeah, so speaking of Camry that I happen to know the location of, as I said, this is configured for mid-engine shift, or mid-engine shifting. So what I had to do was locate a shift actuator for front-wheel drive configuration. So these are the next parts. These are all parts I got from the junkyard yesterday and today. So this first part is the shift actuator. This is just the shift linkage, or shift lever linkage, that needs to be bolted to the transmission, and I'll get to that in a second. This is the shift linkage from a 99 Toyota Solera, or Solera, however you say it. And then I have two shifters here. So my intention, since the Toyota stuff is pretty hard to come by, especially in a junkyard, I wanted to see what other Toyota variant stuff would work. So this shifter is the one out of the Camry, and this is the one I will probably use because I like the metal linkage on it. This is out of a 2008 Corolla S. So it's all very similar. It looks the same. The linkage actually all bolts up to it. It's all the pins are the same diameter, even though this one's plastic. The bushings at the bottom of the shifter are the same diameters. The only thing that I noticed between the two shifters is that where the cables mount, this one's a little bit shorter. So that probably wouldn't work with the Camry shift cables, because then it's going to make them come up short when you get back to the transmission. But yeah, I might buy a set of Corolla shift cables just to see if they work, because it'd be nice to have some other sources for other people that want to do this. Not to be stuck with having to use the rarest of the rare parts, and therefore the most expensive of the most expensive parts. If you wanted to buy these cables new, they're like $170, you know. They're up there. So the other piece I was curious about is that, like I said, this is a E-Series. This is the E153. Toyota, much like Mazda with the G-Series, there's different variants of this transmission. So one of the parts that, like I said, that I thought was going to be a pain in the ass to find was the shift actuator for front-wheel drive configuration, because Like I said, they're only in the Camrys and in the Celicas, like the first, not first gen, but like the, what was it, the ST165, 175, and 180, I think, or 205. There we go. Those guys. I probably got that wrong, so feel free to correct me in the comments. But you know the ones I'm talking about. So, once again, those are all kind of hard cars to find, you know, some 25 years from now, you know, from when they were first on the roads. You know, a lot of that stuff ended up getting crushed, unfortunately, thanks to cash for clunkers, you know. A lot of people just took that stuff in and, you know, and it all just got crushed. And it's really sad. Thanks, Obama. So yeah, forgot where was I? So anyways, yeah, I want to try and see if there were some other options as far as transmission compatibility. I believe the 153 is the strongest. I believe there are some other variants that are probably, you know, just as strong, but I don't know much about them. If you look online, a lot of guys overseas, they do a bunch of different Toyota swaps, and there's a few different ones that they use. All basically the same type of, basically going through the same type of procedures to get them, you know, to get them swapped over. So, like I said, one of the things I was curious about was if I could take the shift actuator from a different E-Series and use it on this one, but unfortunately I couldn't find another manual Toyota transmission in the entire junkyard. I literally looked at 28 Camrys that were in that junkyard, and one of them was a manual. So the likelihood of finding them in junkyards are pretty rare. And even, you know, not just the Camrys, but, you know, Scions, Corollas, Toyota Tercels, pretty much anything that was Toyota. I couldn't find anything that was manual. Because what I really wanted to do was pull one of these guys out of a different E-Series transmission and see if it works in this one. So, but maybe at a later date. So, anyways, this is the cap that's for the mid-engine configuration, and it unbolts out. And then this guy just slides right in. You want to make sure that the transmission is in neutral, that this is lined up straight, and it should just... Alright, apparently took 2 hands to do. So normally, like I said, for the mid-engine configuration, there's a lever that comes out of here that the shift linkage attaches to and swings back and forth. But for front-wheel drive configurations, there's an entirely different shift actuator where it brings it out the back. So that's... That's how that works. Hopefully I can find a new boot for that. So this guy is supposed to bolt here. It's supposed to bolt in like so. But you notice, since this is a mid-engine transmission, there's no bolt holes there. When I was at the junkyard, I paid attention to where these holes were. So I'm going to have to drill and tap those to be able to bolt this down to be able to use this linkage. Another important piece was this linkage, or this bracket. So it goes there, and it holds the cables. So I forget which order they go in. So this is technically the wrong tool for the job. Usually have to be really careful using a tap to clean threads because you can damage the threads. Anyways, these are way too long, but we're going to use them just for the sake of good enough for show and tell time. So I want to say that doesn't look right. That one goes there. And of course there's a clip that holds that in. And this is supposed to go right here. Probably gonna have to replace these bushings because this one's seized on there. But anyways, general idea of what the shift linkage is supposed to look like. So we got, and so that's the way that goes with my hand covering it. So, got all that, so that's good. So all I gotta do is drill and tap these two bosses here so that this can be bolted down. But yeah, so parts I need are axle stubs. I believe I found a set. I ordered them. Hopefully when they come in, they're the right ones because they were $260 for the pair. I need a passenger side bracket for the axle that holds the bearing. I need to find one of those. I found some, like $60 without the bearing. If I have to buy that, I'll just buy that. Axles are easy. I can just go to AutoZone and order axles. They're cheap and easy to find. I have to figure out what to do about the speedometer. You can use a mechanical. There is a mechanical speedo available that will plug into the Escort dash and be relatively close. The problem is the sender in this one is broken, and a replacement mechanical sender is $275. That's a lot of money. So if I can find a mechanical sender for a lot cheaper, then I'd love to do that and keep the stock Escort dash. And of course I have to fabricate up some mounts and stuff, so that's when things are going to get really interesting. Alright, so one of the interesting things about this transmission is that there's no pilot bearing. The shaft just kind of ends at a point. That's because there's a great big honkin' roller bearing in there that keeps this stationary, so there's no need for a pilot. So this is the adapter plate, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. The plate does have a couple of pins for the Toyota side. Just line those up. Get that on there like so. So there's two sets of holes. There's threaded holes in the plate. All the threaded holes are where the transmission bolts to. And then there's this straight through holes, and these are the BP pattern here. Well, that one's for the starter, so let's not worry about that one. But yeah, this one right here is for the BP. So one of the things that has to be done is that the transmission has to be clearanced for the bolt heads on the back half. So that'd be probably what I'll do in the next couple of weeks here is start on that. The starter, the BP starter, in order to use that, you have to cut a chunk out of the transmission here, so or out of this bell housing. So cut a chunk out so that the starter will fit in there. You can make a plate to cover up where the factory starter or the Toyota starter would have normally gone. That's where one of the dowel pins on the BP goes. One of the things that has to be, another thing that has to be done is once this is bolted on, depending on the clutch you're using, the inside, the bell housing has to be clearanced, because there's some places where the bell housing may rub depending on the clutch. Another solution to that is take your flywheel, have it decked, and have the post on it also decked, so it brings the pressure plate in closer to the engine. So that will probably be what I will do, is just do that rather than having to spend a bunch of time grinding out the bell housing. But yeah, like I said, collecting parts. Once I have all the pieces to the puzzle and I have everything in my possession, I will start pulling car apart. We'll probably acquire a empty BP block or B8 block. They're the same block, but basically an empty block, so that I can use for mock-up. You know, it'll be a lot lighter and easier to move around. I don't have to worry about like dropping my built engine and cracking the block in half or something. So yeah, so I have to find a block, a blank block, an empty block. Oh yeah, the other last part I need is a clutch disc. I have to get a disc that fits the line pattern of this, but fits inside of the BP clutch, the pressure plate and flywheel. I believe there's an off-the-shelf unit that will work. It's from like some 90s Toyota truck or something like that, but I believe Clutch Masters has one on the shelf. It's like $140, so I also need to order that. Yeah, so I've got some other parts that aren't related to the 153 swap, but I'll be doing while I have the engine out and the car's apart. So let me show you those. There we go, it's a little better. So first part, I'm going to go over these camber plates. These are from KA Injection. Or they're camber caster plates, and that's the nice thing about these. I already have a set of camber plates on the car. They came with the coilovers. You know, they're the K-Sport. But they only have camber or caster, one or the other, depending on which way you flip them. But these are camber and caster, and I feel like this is probably pretty important. You know, if I actually plan on tracking the car. So yeah, when I have the car apart, I'll be throwing these on. I just haven't. If I were to put these on, I'd have to readjust the suspension, and I just haven't felt like doing that. I actually got these a while ago, but yeah, I just haven't felt like putting them on. But like I said, when the car's up on jack stands, I'm gonna have to pull the suspension apart anyways to do the transmission swap. So while everything is apart, I'll be throwing these on. And these are really nice looking. We can get it. Alright, so the next part is this intake manifold. It's from I don't know which Kia engine. It's from some Kia, but yeah. So Carlos and Manuel, I'll refer to them henceforth as La Stanley Racing. La Stanley Racing has made like 700 horsepower on this manifold. I think they had a different throttle body on it. What they did was they cut the throttle body off and put a bigger throttle body on. But I know they've made well over 500 on this manifold, 600, something like that. And like I said, it's from a Kia. not a Kia as in the Swedish furniture store, but a Kia. And this is the BP intake flange. So it actually, I forget which way this goes. I honestly can't remember. But anyways, all the ports line up pretty well. It's actually pretty amazing that just by chance, you know, all the ports line up like that. So what I have to do is cut the old flange off and then weld the BP flange on. I might pay someone to do it, but I'm also thinking about buying a TIG welder. I've been looking at the Alpha TIG 201X or something. I forgot what the hell it's called. But anyways, I've been looking at their TIG welder, and I'm really thinking about just go ahead and making a step and buying a TIG welder, because this won't be the last project like this. I want to build a new turbo manifold, and I'm probably going to put a cage in the car at some point. And I'd like to do most of it myself. So, you know, $720 invested into a TIG welder, you know, plus $200-300 for accessories and stuff, seems like something worthwhile. You know, if I had someone build me a manifold, that's going to be like $1,000 or something like that, and have someone do a cage for me, that's another $1,000. You know, just having this flange welded on is like 200 and something bucks. So I think it's worthy that I already know that I can do it. I just need the equipment to do it, so I should just buy the equipment to do it. So, like I said, anyways, this will be the other thing I'll be doing is putting this on while the car is apart, getting this welded up and everything. These BPs really love these long runners. The plenum on this guy is pretty big, or considerably larger than the one on the GTX manifold. It's a real good manifold considering it comes off a factory car. So yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Kind of a boring picture, kind of not. I mean, it's just information and talking. Just figured I'd keep you guys updated on what's going on, because I am moving kind of, not really moving slowly with it, but I've been kind of stagnant as far as with uploading stuff. So yeah, you know, that's the plan. Make the car make 500 horse and allow it to be reliable while doing so, because the G series just isn't going to cut it. A few more parts needed to get the E series swap going. Like I said, I just need axles, clutch disc, and fabricate up some engine mounts. There's lots of well, not really lots of information, but there's a pretty good amount of information online, so I won't be going at it alone. Till next time.